haven't got that felt yet.
All right. Okay, very good. I'll do it. All right, thanks, Paco. Yeah, bye-bye. Okay. All right. So is it still just us? I think it is. Good evening. This is the High Mountain Presbyterian Church, our Tuesday night Bible discussion. We are here on a cold winter's night. So far there's just two of us, but that's okay. If we get three, the scripture promises where two or three are gathered, God has a kind of special way of being with us. So we're counting on that for tonight. We are following in our tradition. I'm Pastor Lou Kilgore. I have been the pastor here at the High Mountain Presbyterian Church for 13 years. And ever since COVID, we've been doing this live stream as well as a Zoom. And we find various groups, individuals come and go. Welcome. You're welcome to journey along with us. Tonight, we are reading from let's see, I lost the page, but it's the psalm about sickness. It's Psalm 38 is our psalm for tonight. And so we'll be reading it and then discussing it. Okay? Colette, did you get your chores done?
I'm divvying out my vitamin.
Oh, okay. All right, so you can listen.
I have to take them 5 times a day because of this silly eye.
Oh, okay. All right, so I'm gonna just say I'm gonna start to read, and so I'll read the psalm. It's Psalm 38, 23 verses of it, and this psalm in my guidebook is called a sick person's prayer. And I think
Lou?
Yes. Oh.
I'm sorry.
Hey!
Hi there.
Debbie is on her way. She's almost here.
I see.
Sorry about that. I didn't realize I had to unmute myself. Too many buttons to click.
So is that Debbie I see behind you? She's with you, isn't she? Yes. Hi,
Yes,
Debbie.
yes.
Yeah.
She's
I'm trying to get it on my computer. Wait, you're gonna have to...
she's working on her computer right now.
I see. Okay. Well, we all get a little grace to make the computers work. So
it's 38. Where are you?
I haven't. What is it coming across on Rev Louis? Can I search?
No, it's right in the, it's Wednesday Bible study.
Yeah, I know,
No,
but
it's Tuesday night.
Tuesday.
This is Tuesday.
It's Chris Buckley. It would have been today.
Yeah, would have arrived today. Tuesday night Bible study. You want me to send it to you?
you can go on without me.
Okay, she's gonna listen while she's looking.
All right.
But I think it was around 2-3 o'clock this afternoon that I got it, but it's under Chris.
So I'm getting there. Okay.
All right.
She has so many emails. Whoa.
So are you two having a good time down there in Florida?
Well, of course we are, of course.
I only got here this afternoon.
She just got here this afternoon.
Well, good.
So we haven't had too many exciting parties going on, but we are having a nice time.
Well, you're in an exciting party now.
All right. Okay, so it's Psalm 38.
Yes, it is.
A Psalm of David for the memorial offering. O Lord, do not rebuke me in your anger, or discipline me in your wrath, for your arrows have sunk into me, and your hand has come down on me. There is no soundness in my flesh because of your indignation. There is no health in my bones because of my sin. For my iniquities have gone over my head. They weigh like a burden too heavy for me. My wounds grow foul and fester because of my foolishness. I am utterly bowed down and prostrate. All day long I go round mourning, for my loins are filled with burning, and there is no soundness in my flesh. I am utterly spent and crushed. I groan because of the tumult of my heart. O Lord, all my longing is known to you. My sighing is not hidden from you. My heart throbs, my strength fails me. For as for the light of my eyes, it also has gone from me. My friends and companions stand aloof from my affliction, and my neighbors stand far off. Those who seek my life lay their snares. Those who seek to hurt me speak of ruin and meditate treachery all day long. But I am like the deaf, I do not hear, like the mute who cannot speak. Truly, I am like one who does not hear, and in whose mouth is no retort. But it is for me. Okay, you can't do that.
So Debbie, Debbie, if you just turn your volume down, then you can listen through Barbara's for the sound, but otherwise you could stay on for the video.
Oh, okay, I'll try that. Sorry, guys.
But then can she talk?
Yeah, well, yeah, but I can hear her. I can hear her no problem. So she can talk and we can talk.
Yep.
But if you,
Okay,
where did you leave off?
okay. My heart throbs, my strength fails me. As for the light of my eyes, it also has gone from me. My friends and companions stand aloof from my affliction, and my neighbors stand far off. Those who seek my life lay their snares. Those who seek to hurt me speak of ruin and meditate treachery all day long. But I am like the deaf, I do not hear, like the mute who cannot speak. Truly, I am like one who does not hear, and to whose mouth is no retort. But it is for you, O Lord, that I wait. It is you, O Lord, my God, who will answer. For I pray, only do not let them rejoice over me, those who boast against me when my foot slips. For I am ready to fall, and my pain is ever with me. I confess my iniquity. I am sorry for my sin. Those who are my foes without cause are mighty, and many are those who hate me wrongfully. Those who render me evil for good are my adversaries, because I follow after good. Do not forsake me, O Lord. O my God, do not be far from me. Make haste to help me, O Lord, my salvation. I have an extra Bible.
I have my phone someplace.
Oh, yeah, use that and I'll get another one in the class,
Yeah, is that, whose phone is that? Is that mine or yours?
that's mine.
Sorry.
No,
We're
I'm sorry about that. It's easier for me to get a Bible. The Bible.
We'll just wait a minute for them to get back on the
Okay.
program. She finished reading and they just got up and walked away.
I think that they're going to get a phone.
I think, or,
So-
yeah, she actually was gonna get a copy of the Bible. So she was going to get it on her phone because she wanted to follow along on the reading, but she didn't have a Bible.
Oh, yeah, I want to know whether her Bible has an option to read aloud
Right.
to me.
I was going to look for one like that to see if I had one, but I forgot to check. Because you
Okay.
used to have one that did that.
Yeah, but it doesn't do it anymore.
Yeah, I don't
Use the
know.
Bible. We'll get the phone later.
Or at least I don't know how to get it.
No, I was just starting to think like we were doing. All right.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. We lost you temporarily.
Well, I was going for the Bible, she was going for her phone.
And now I've
So-
got a phone and a Bible.
Yeah, we have both.
Okay, good. So, here's what I want to say about this psalm. Don't write a psalm when you feel really bad. As the person that wrote this psalm is really sick. I mean, really sick. And so, while being really sick, forms a theology about God and about how God is involved. And again, what I want to say is, don't do this when you're sick. Because what comes out is a really nasty image of God. I'm sick because I've been a bad person. And I'm really sorry, God. I'll say I'm sorry for whatever it is I did, but just don't neglect me. I know that my illness is a direct result of my bad behavior. And so what I want to say is, to all of us who read the Bible, we have to allow the context to keep us from coming up with bad ideas about God and consequences in life. I don't believe for a minute that this is a thought or an explanation that God would be happy with. I figure God is up there going, no, you just feel really bad. And because you feel really bad, you're coming out with really bad ideas. These are bad ideas in this psalm. It is a bad idea that if you get up, and did you get a load of how sick this person is? Holy cow. It's like, their bones are collapsing inside their body. Their flesh has no soundness to it. He's numb all over, and yet he feels terribly congested. I feel like they ought to play one of those commercials that they do when a person, looks and sounds terrible, and then they give them a decongestant. This person needs a theology decongestant. This is bad theology, and it's born out of feeling really, really bad. Because he's really sick, or she's really sick. Now, let me ask you this. I know that we men are all accused of this, and I think there's some truth to it, that when I get sick, I turn into a whiny baby. Right? And, my mother always used to say, my father can get sick, but of course, I'm never allowed to get sick, because I have to work through all of my illness and just live with it and get on with it. But, when Dad would get a fever, Dad would take to his bed, and he would get taken care of. But if you get really sick, and I'm sure all of you have been really sick, I don't know, like really bad COVID or the flu or something like that. Hi, Judy. She's coming in. Does it, when you're sick, and you're really sick, does it affect your sense of everything? Have you ever been sick like that, where, it's not just I'm sick, it's that the world is falling apart and I'm a mess, and, and I've never been able to do anything right, and have you ever felt that way?
Of course.
Okay.
The world is at an end, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Hi, Judy.
Hello, I'm so glad to be here. Sorry to be late.
That's okay. We're talking about Psalm 38.
Okay, great. I'm just getting my Bible.
Okay. And I don't know what else I want to say about this psalm. It's all a bad it's a bad expression of a person who is feeling really bad. And then, feels permission to go ahead and wonder what part does God play in it? God is really mad at me. I'm really sick. My friends, they are staying away from me. And I thought, well, I know why they're staying away from you. Because, because you're sick and you're really whiny. Like you are really, really whiny. This person is just whiny to no end. And they're convinced God brought the illness on them because of something, I don't know, they did or said. And so now they're trying to confess so God will give them a break. And, my summary is this is really, really bad theology, and it's presented to us so that we can see it for what it is. That's what I think. I don't think we're supposed to read this part of the Bible and go, so this is how it is. So this is how it is with God. If you make up your theology from this sick person's psalm, then you're going to have a sick idea of God. How's that? That's my soapbox for tonight.
One of the comments here is this is one of the 7 penitential psalms. I've never heard that statement, penitential.
Well, it comes from the liturgy of the church. So you're penitent. You do your penance. And
Right.
in this case, it's referring to the fact that this writer of this psalm believes they've done something wrong, and they're trying to get right with God so they can get better. Because their God, in the mood they're in, their God is the kind of God who makes you sick when you do bad things. And I don't know. I mean, we've talked about this. Is that your God? Is that your idea of God? When you get sick, do you pray a prayer of confession?
No, I think I got a germ,
Yeah.
Yeah.
or I ate some bad food or something. I don't blame God. I mean, if not me, then who should it be?
Yeah, so not to keep repeating what I'm saying, but Colette, you're saying that because you're not sick right now. You're thinking very clearly. You're thinking clearly. You've got your head on, you're thinking right, but this person is sick. And in their sickness, they're spinning out a sick God. They're spinning out a sick idea. And I don't know, again, when I get sick, it changes how I feel, it changes how I think, it changes everything.
It's interesting. You can reframe it too, because I remember when I had breast cancer, I really didn't blame God. I think I just prayed I think I prayed to God that I would get well.
Yeah.
So I think, reframing is also, might be, a part of the way that we respond, to sickness. Instead of blaming, praying, that God will help us.
Yeah, I think it's a great practice, but again, don't don't write a psalm if you have a fever. Don't be thinking through, your whole thought. Like you said, well, I had cancer, but you didn't go to the place where you thought, well, God gave me this cancer because, I wasn't friendly to my neighbor. I mean,
No.
that's delirium. It's delirious to think that way. And yet, I'm going to try to be careful now to say there are a lot of people who do see God this way. And they see that God this way not just when they have a fever or not just when they're sick. And they especially like to see God this way when they're around other people who are sick. And they want to tell those people why they're sick. And they want to explain to them the ways of God. And I mean, I think in your Bible you ought to just take a purple highlighter and mark all this psalm in purple and then make a footnote that says this was written by a person who was really sick.
But as you said, I don't see that if you have that mindset, it happens whether you're sick or you're well, that you just think that you did the right thing or God is rewarding you if you've done something right. But I don't think it's a mindset because the person is sick. I think that's just the mindset of that some people believe that, it's happening because God decided
Yeah.
to do this for me.
Well, I guess I want to say, I want to give this person the benefit of the doubt. And I want to say that if they weren't sick, they wouldn't be thinking this way.
Pastor Lou, in your experience, is this something that that you've experienced? In terms of when people are sick, that this is a reaction that that
Only when they're sick?
Yeah. I think, I mean, it's a good question. I don't want to answer it lightly. Truthfully, I don't run into a lot of people, even people that I visit in the hospital who are sick, who really believe that they're sick because they did something wrong. I just don't. Now,
yeah, right.
now,
right.
I will say that in very critical illnesses, cancer, which is terminal and the end is near, if the person is suffering a lot and they're having a hard time, answering the whys, why is this happening to me? Why do I have to leave this life before I get to see my daughter married? All those things that are really heavy burdens that come upon someone who is sick, especially sick unto death. What I hear sneaking in around the edges is this way of thinking. They might ask, is God trying to tell me something? And that's when usually I listen.
Hi there.
Oh, hi Cheryl, how are you? Welcome. I try to offer, from my point of view, I'm not sick, I'm not dying of cancer, but I try to say to them, I don't really think that's the way God relates to us. I just don't think that's the case. And so I try to invite them out of that frame of mind that would, that would lead them, in my view, to be thinking about or praying to God who's actually quite mean. I mean, I think that's mean. And I don't serve a mean God. I live in a world where there is cancer, where there are viruses, where there are terrible accidents, and there are acts of war, and terrible things happen. But I do not have an idea of God as the puppet master up there, doing the marionette thing. I just don't. I think we have a lot to deal with in this life. I think Jesus showed us in his own life that you'll have this. There will be things that will happen. He was ministering to a town and people got mad and they tried to stone him. I mean, this happens. But I don't see a prayer of Jesus where he gets down on his hands and knees and says, oh God, I must have done something wrong or they wouldn't be stoning me. I don't sense that. So I think in the world we live in today, most of the people that I run into, if they get sick or they have a car accident or something like that, unless they have a fever and they're delirious, they're pretty much able to say, gee, I wish this wasn't happening. But they don't generally go to the point of, why is God doing this to me? Now, I don't know. What about you all? Are you inclined to that way of thinking? Do you?
No, no.
Sometimes I think if there's a situation that's very difficult, I think, well, maybe there's a learning lesson, here that I'm here to learn.
Yeah.
I do think, yeah. Is there something I did in a previous life or whatever? And I know that's part of me anyway, but, what is it that I'm supposed to be learning? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's the most productive version of this. If trauma and tragedy come into your life, rather than sitting around trying to reason what you did wrong to deserve it, but looking into the crisis or the tragedy or the challenge and looking for the resurrection. Look for that which can turn this into something that's good or something that's helpful.
What's the lesson? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like this is kind of Job in reverse. Job doesn't say, yeah, I've done something wrong, that's why I got all this calamity. He's just the opposite. He's just, not blaming God, but still suffering.
Yeah,
But not
suffering,
blaming.
yeah, tremendously. But like you said, not blaming God, just you'll have this. Job just takes it as if, look, this happens in life. These things come along. It's painful. I don't like it. But, he has an abiding confidence that God is with him. We've talked about this before. It's a little troubling in that as the readers, we know that God made a bet and that God is allowing these things to happen to win a bet with the Satan. I mean, that makes it a dark story. I mean, it is a dark story. But in this case, there's none of that. This is a guy who...
What did this guy do that he feels
He never
his
said.
sin? Yeah, now I'm curious, what the heck did he do?
Yeah, he never says. Yeah, he just says, I've confessed my sin. As if to say, okay, you can let up now. I don't know. Does it say what he did?
Well, I don't think so. But at least, in verse 7, he says, and now, O Lord, what do I wait for? My hope is in you.
Yeah.
Well, there'll be some understanding, but you still don't know what he did and why he thinks God would punish him with illness because he did something wrong. I have a feeling a lot of people think that way, though.
So look at verse, I don't know if it's verse 3 or verse 4. In my translation, it says, my flesh has no soundness because of your anger and your indignation. My bones have no health because of my sin.
Because of my sin. For my iniquities have gone over my head. This guy is really in trouble.
I'm telling you, he's got a fever. He has a fever. He doesn't feel...
The lyrics.
Right. He doesn't feel good. He doesn't feel good at all.
Don't you know people who say, when I think about it, I know a lot of people who say, when things go wrong in their lives, what have I done? Oh
Yeah,
God, what have I done?
yeah.
Maybe he doesn't even know what he's done.
No, well, and
Yeah.
he says that all the festering and the wounds are because of his folly. Now I don't know what that means. You know, did he eat poisonous mushrooms? Like what? what? What did he do? I don't know, but he did something. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it probably doesn't matter to God and it shouldn't matter to us. It's
Right.
like
Right.
they are pulling you out for some horribleness because of something that you did. Who
And
knows?
I don't know. I guess the psalm is. So the commentators say this psalm was never a part of a liturgy in any ritual. It was never part of a Jewish temple or anything. It is literally a copy of a personal prayer that someone wrote.
Oh,
This is a personal prayer. And it was repeated. I mean, it was circulated. It's circulated in the Torah. It's a part of the sacred record, but it's different than the other psalms that we read. They didn't take this into the gathering in the temple and read it as an edification. This is literally a personal prayer from, and I'll say it 100 times over, from a very sick person. Like, I almost feel like this person, okay, they wrote the prayer, they prayed the prayer, and then they should have called somebody. They should have, they should have called somebody. They should have called up somebody from Bible study, or they should have called their pastor and said, I'm feeling really bad. Would you come over here and pray for me? Because I will promise you, the person who comes to pray for them is not going to pray this theology. They're not going to pray these ideas of God.
but in Job, the friends do.
Oh,
The
in Job
friends
they do.
assume
Yeah.
that Job did something. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess you want to
So-
be careful which friends you
Uh-huh.
call over.
Which friends you call?
Oh,
And notice he does say that his friends are staying away.
there's yeah,
Right?
because they figured he's a sinner. He's admitting, I've sinned, that's why God's mad. Okay, so we're gonna stay away from you.
Yeah.
It might rub off.
But I don't know.
Not because it has an infectious disease.
Right.
And they're afraid of getting sick.
Right. He sees his friend standing off and thinks it's because he's been a bad person. And they're talking and going, I'm not going near that guy. He's sick. He's just sick. I don't want to get sick. And he sees it as a judgment, oh, now they're isolating me. Well, yeah, because you're sick. We don't want your feeling. We don't want your ideas about God, not when you're feeling like that.
Yeah, he needs somebody, there's a website, Spoonful of Comfort. A friend had sent this to me when I was after my surgery. And it's meals in a gift basket. Comes to your house, nice warm soup, you can even get slippers or some stuff that's comforting for the sick. And you don't even have to show up on their doorstep, you can send it through them. So I need something like that.
Well, listen, so maybe if they're going to send all the good food and the soup and the rolls and everything, you could write a little note that says, you wouldn't be sick if you hadn't sinned. How about that? You know it and I know it. So confess your sin and you'll get better. Wouldn't that be comforting, right?
Right.
Yeah, the guy would have to go right to the shrink, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I think a lot, I do know people who do say that from time to time. I don't know what I did wrong, I must have done something horrible, God's punishing me. I do know people that say that. I don't know if they actually mean it, but they say it.
Well, you didn't wear your mask when you went out in the COVID. That's why you're sick.
Right, so there's a sin.
Or you did wear a mask. Some people think it's wearing the mask that made you sick.
But I
Really.
think, I wonder if there isn't, so as you said it, in the way you said it, Debbie, where somebody says, oh, you know, what did I do wrong? This is happening to me. That's a kind of a reflection or a thing that might come out of somebody's mouth, you know, just in terms of, but this person put pen to paper and made a decision that in fact they had done something indescribable, I guess. I don't know. It's a heavy burden that's laying on them. And I don't know whether they actually feel guilty, here I go again, or whether they feel bad. And because they feel bad, they associate that feeling of feeling bad with feeling guilty, and then they assume they've done something to deserve how sick they are. I mean,
And everybody's something bad, right? So
yeah.
you can always point something.
Yeah. And especially when you have a fever, you know, you can come up with a pretty good list of what you've done wrong in your life, right? I mean, there's no defenses anymore. You're just, oh, I'm a terrible person. And so this person wrote down a prayer. Now, it's admirable that this person is writing to God, is writing and saying, hey, you know, come on, pay attention over here. I'm really sick. And by the way, I'm really sorry for whatever I did. And can you lend me some aid here? Could you please help me out? Oh, do not abandon me, God. Oh my God, do not be far from me. Come quickly to my aid. Oh Lord, my victory. So there's something very simple. The cry for help, which is in here, may the theology of a punishing God bringing the sickness probably comes from the sickness, but in their sickness they have not lost the idea that God cares about them, and that they can call out to God. And I'm still not sure I understand this theology of both the Psalms and throughout the Hebrew Scriptures, which Brueggemann talks about all the time, and that is sometimes you have to wake God up to your situation. And I still haven't figured that quite out yet. You know, you have to wake God up. There's lots of Psalms that say, awake, O God, and look to see what's happening here. Or a question, do you see this, God? Do you see what's going on here? And in Brueggemann's explanation of it, it was very much a part of the normal relations of a person to God, to be able to say, hey God, I know you're paying attention to a lot in the world, but I'd really appreciate it if you'd pay attention to what's happening over here in my zip code. Because this isn't good, and you need to pay attention here. You need to get involved and get down here and do something. Now, I'm saying I can't really say that in my life of faith that I've ever actually prayed that prayer. You know, I mean, in a way, I have to take that back. In a way, as a pastor, I have prayed like that when I have gone into someone's home and there's profound loss or profound grief, and I intone to God, I say, God, please come here and give aid. Come here and rescue this person or defend this person. So I guess maybe I think of it more as I'll be inclined as a pastor to pray to awaken God for somebody else's circumstances. But I walk around, I don't know, and I want to know if you feel this way. I walk around with a sense that God knows exactly what's going on in my life.
Yeah.
Would you say that's true for you as well? Or is God more distant and whatever? I mean,
I would agree. I would agree when I think about that. Yeah. Do we think about that often though?
well, do you think God knows the circumstances of your life tonight?
I like to think so.
Probably. Yeah, if I think about it.
It's not a very
Why not?
relationship,
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
way only, you know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because everything is transparent, isn't it?
Cheryl, I'll put you on the spot. What about you? You're muted right now. You have to turn off the mute so we can hear what you say. There you go.
I think that God knows, but sometimes I think maybe we need to say something. Not even I think, I know He knows, but I think He needs to say something. Sometimes we need to say something. And maybe that's just a way for Him to realize, okay, they've had enough. Let me step in. Let me help them out. I guess it's kind of like when our children, you kind of leave them on their own as adults anyway. and you see that they're really screwing things up and you gotta step in. And they know, that they've made mistakes, but you kind of let them figure it out. But then after a while, you have to step in.
And in that illustration, do they come to you and ask you for help?
Yes.
Yeah.
Once they've gone down the wrong way for a period of time, yes.
And when they try to describe it to you and they can't really tell you what's going on, you go, I already know what's going on. Like,
Right.
I already know exactly what's happening here. Don't worry. So I like that. I like that because the Bible helps us to understand and breaks down the relationship of us to God by referring to relationships between parents and children. They do it all the time. So I like that move to understand it. It's parents in some ways. I mean, let's admit it. When you're the parent, sometimes you are all knowing. You do know an awful lot of what's going on. You may not want to, but you do know. You do know a lot of what's going on. But then there are times when you'll wait. At least I did. I'll wait. You're in trouble. I know you're in trouble. In fact, I used to enjoy it when they were in trouble, and I knew they had to come to me for help, but they didn't really want to, and I didn't bail them out until they asked. Because then I could give them my lecture.
Yeah. I don't believe it.
Yeah. The door's open. But I don't know. I mean, Colette, what about you? You live your life. Do you have a sense that God knows what's going on in your life and that, it's like the two of you are on the same wavelength?
Well, I figure, he's a really busy person. There's an awful lot of people in the world and things going on in space, and I don't like to bother him too much. But I do, I have some friends that need prayers, and I pray more for other people than for myself, I think, because I think I got it. I got everything taken care of.
Wow.
Me and God we're okay.
Okay.
But do you sometimes, I mean, I know like everybody else, things get rough and it gets confusing sometimes. Do you ever pray a prayer like this to say, hey, God, like, don't forget me over here? I mean, come on, where are you? Do you ever get to that point?
I don't think I ever have. No, I think God, you gave me this brain and maybe you can figure it out. So I've been doing figuring it out.
And then in that process, you just count on God as a companion, right?
Yeah, well, I think we're okay, God and
Yeah.
I.
Yeah.
You gotta sprinkle some of that around. A lot of us use it.
Well, I like how generous you are, Colette, to say, God's pretty busy. I don't want to bother God too much, I can't, I can't say that I've ever actually lived out that feeling too much. I'm too into my own problems. I know my problems and my worries and my fears, and I'm the nagging kid. I'm like, come on, you know about this? I'm worried about this, I'm worried about that. And I don't often think about God needing to take care of somebody else. I want God to I want God to take care of my problems. I mean, I'm the pastor. How am I going to go take care of somebody else if God doesn't take care of me? So I've got my list a mile long. I don't care how busy God is. I mean, that's what God's supposed to be God for, right?
Well, I'm hoping that the people I pray for are much more in need of help than I am.
Debbie, what about you? How do you think about these topics or this?
I try not to. No, frankly, I feel that if I don't pray for myself, then what part of the relationship is missing there? I mean, that's nice if other people pray for me, but I think I need a personal connection with God. And that means when I'm feeling crummy, I can pray to, please help me along here.
Yeah.
I don't think I say, what did I do wrong? I don't usually, like I said, I have heard people say that. I don't think that way, but I know things happen, and when they happen, I think probably God is the first thing. I'll pray, like, please, help.
Yeah.
And sometimes help comes, sometimes it doesn't, but that's the way things are. But it's comforting to know that I feel that God is there.
Yeah.
And God wants to hear from me. God thought enough of me to create me, so I think, why not? I'm just as big a part of the creation as every other living thing and inanimate things, And yeah, the universe is huge, but I think God is aware of the creation and how he relates to me. The only way I can relate is as a human being. And that means putting it into words, maybe imperfect, but in prayer.
Yeah. That's nice. That's nice. I wish sometimes that I had a discipline of making my prayers more formal, so that I knew for myself that I'm gonna pray. I'm worried about this, whatever. I'm frightened of this or whatever, and then more consciously saying, I'm gonna pray about it, and maybe even by myself. I'm a pastor. I lead in prayers all the time. I try to write prayers for Sunday morning that gather everybody else up. But this is a personal prayer that this person wrote. And it expresses their own, again, sick, I think, ideas, but there's still a confidence in God here. That God is listening. I mean, who would pray if you aren't convinced God's listening?
Right. Why are you doing that?
Like,
Yeah.
Well, I forgot. I do say thank you, God, a lot during the daytime when I barely make a mistake. Oh, thank you, God.
Right?
Well, yeah. I mean, so there's a sense of God walking right with you, right? Involved in what's
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's a big comfort. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for, just being here with me.
I think to me, prayer is a dialogue with God and a discussion. It's not the more formal, that it's more a conversation, and that I feel comfortable. And a lot of what I'm saying to God is really saying to myself. And a lot of it is, oh, ye of little faith, that I think that I can't get through this, or we can't get through this, or whatever is going on. But I I know I know in Debbie's tradition that she says specific words, and I was not comfortable with that in the Catholic Church, to say the same words over and over again. But I think each of us has to find ways that we can connect with God, and what works for us, I think is important.
I think part of the um, place that prayer has in Islam is you have the formality of the 5 daily prayers, and then you have your own dua, which is your personal prayer. And you can do that in any language. You don't have to learn Arabic. But for the formal prayers, you learn Arabic. And there's something to having some ritual, but also knowing that you just remembering God. The remembrance of God is a big part in Islam too. And I think most of the time when I'm connecting with God, it's just in my mind. I'm not even saying anything out loud. I'm just thinking about God. And that, I think, is pretty profound as well. So there's so many ways to express. Um, yeah. And I like some of the discipline of having like a timetable and a specific time you put aside to do something more formal. But then the rest of the day, as it goes by, that God is in your thoughts. Of course, I missed a couple of prayers today.
So in Islam, when it comes to a specific time of prayer, is there a prayer that is said at that time?
There is a certain pattern in the prayer that you say the opening chapter of the Quran in every prayer, and then you add pieces that you know or have memorized or from the Quran, and then there's a formal way, movement. Your whole body gets involved. But nobody's, unless you're in a congregation and the imam is leading and you're following, you're listening, everybody can read different parts. After the first chapter, you can read anything you want. And if you don't know much, you can just say one word. I mean, it's just, But when you're praying, but it's encouraged to do dua in your own words at any time, and zikr, remembrance, all the time, if you can. I mean, and people do that. There's a lot of different ways to express that. And I like the mix of formality and informality. I think there's a bit of a discipline to that, and then there's, recognition that everybody's different and your needs are different, and sometimes one way to pray works for you, but in Islam, the formal part is you follow the same pattern. You might read a different chapter, but you follow the same pattern. It's hard to explain because there's a lot of to it, and there's 5 different prayers. Each prayer has a couple of different rakah. So you follow this pattern twice, and in this time of the day you follow it 3 times, and yeah. But that's the formal part, and the rest of the day is up to you. You know.
I'm remembering what I thought was a very enlightening time, Barbara, you talked about in the Catholic Church, the repetition of same prayers didn't appeal to you. And we had an ecumenical Thanksgiving service one time, and I was pretty good friends with the Monsignor that was in town. And he had told us he wasn't going to be able to make it to the ecumenical service, and so we didn't put him in the order of service. And so, you know, we had a lot printed up. We had the Lord's Prayer. We had all of the prayers printed, but there were some Methodists, and there were some Presbyterians, and we left some of it unstructured so that we would just call upon a person to pray at this time, right? And so we had every other spot filled, and the Monsignor's there in the prep room, and he's saying, "So what do you want me to do?" And the person coordinating the service said, "Well, why don't you do the prayer of Thanksgiving right after whatever, I don't know. There was a prayer of Thanksgiving after the offering, I think it was." And he looked at all of us and went, what are you talking about? You want me to pray a prayer? You got to hand me the prayer." and I said, "What?" And he goes, "Look, I'm not a Protestant. I don't just carry around prayers in my head." He goes, "All of my prayers are in the prayer book. So which prayer do you want me to pray?" I was like, I have to say, I was dumbfounded, because basically he was saying the only prayers he knows are the ritual prayers.
That can't be true for every Catholic priest, though. I've heard priests.
I don't think it can be.
Prayer, yeah.
But he was a Monsignor, and he had become so accustomed to, in the liturgy, here's the prayer, here's the words, turn to this page, read this prayer. And so he wanted us to show him where that prayer was written down so he could read it. And so you know what we did? We skipped him. We just said, we're like, "It's all right, we'll have that." We handed that over to the Baptist pastor, because the Baptist pastor doesn't even have a liturgy, and they can pray right off the top of their head. So he was happy with that. He was really panicked. He wasn't up to having his individual words listened to. He wasn't going to construct a prayer in his head. But it always left me wondering, sometimes I get that same thought sometimes in Presbyterian church. If we're having a meeting or something, and they always call upon the clergy person to say the prayer. But, do we carry around an awareness of how to pray enough that if you're starting a meeting or closing a meeting or having a meal, that if you were called upon to say a prayer, that you could construct something as a prayer? What would you say to God in this moment? Now, I know it's very intimidating. People get more worried not about what God is thinking, but they get more worried about what other people are thinking about what they're saying. I get that.
Yeah.
I also think another form of prayer for me is meditation, because it just thinking, whether it's nature or breathing or relaxing or whatever, that to me is a prayer to God, recognizing the presence of God in my life all the time.
Yeah. Now when you say meditating, that's a silence though, right?
Yes.
So in the silence, is your mind silent too, or are there thoughts that?
No, I might say present moment, special moment. I might say breathing in. I know I am breathing in. And all of this is to me a recognition of the presence of God in my life. So I don't think there is one way for everyone. Whatever floats your boat.
Wow. When you
No,
say
I meditate. I meditate every morning at 8:30, and it's silence, and it's trying to quiet your mind. But you can't, because thoughts keep coming. As soon as you notice the thought, you drop it and go back to the silence.
So
I think that,
yeah, go ahead.
that you have the Monsignor who's at a loss for words, and when we're in the mosque during Ramadan and it's getting very, very late at night, sometimes close to midnight, the last prayer and the formal prayer in the evening, as we read through the Quran, we know that Imam is going to do the Vidr prayer. That's, a formula with 2 rakah and then maybe one last prayer, and it's all spontaneous. And the Imam goes on, and it's getting later and later, and he goes on and on, and he's praying for, it seems like every human being in the world, and you're thinking, that's great, but I'd like to go home. Single thing to say. Sometimes the Imam's got us standing there for 20 minutes, like this, like, oh, all right. That's terrible for me to say, but I can't even imagine. You would call on any Imam, he can say a prayer about anything, at any time, in any language. It's like so strange. And I said, priests, sometimes you can't shut them up either. How did this Monsignor get into that position where he couldn't pray a spontaneous prayer?
He's in a very liturgical church. A very liturgical church. And there in the liturgy, there's a pre-thought out, pre-worked out prayer for every circumstance. And a lot of the training of priests is not how to construct prayers or how to pray. It's how to read prayers from the prayer book. It's how to read them in ways that are meaningful. I mean, you think about the whole administration of the sacrament. All those words in the administration of the sacrament are all prescribed. They're all there. Now, they don't let the priest go behind the altar and have the body of Christ and then say, okay, why don't you vamp a little bit, talk a little bit about what this is about. That doesn't happen. So, and I was going to say before that what you're describing about the imam in the gathering reminds me of the Pentecostal church. Now, in the Pentecostal church, there is not one single prayer that is written down. They don't believe in it. Every prayer has to be spontaneous. Every prayer should be off the top of your head. And every person as a part of that whole worshiping community should be able at any moment to offer up a prayer.
Aren't the Quakers somewhat like that too? They're all just silent until somebody's actually moved to prayer? Yeah. I like a kind of the both, but whatever.
You know what's interesting to me as a child, because I was always observing things that no one wanted me to see. So in the Pentecostal church, we always talked about how we were a free tradition. We didn't believe in pre-written prayers. We didn't believe in the structure of liturgy. We were free. It's all genuine. It's us and God. But as a child, you know what I noticed? All the prayers sounded alike. they all sounded alike. There was a style of what I call the free prayer, and there's almost a code that you learn how to pray it. And it was always interesting to me that my father, he would always say the prayer at supper before we ate. And he was a man who preached about the fact that your prayers shouldn't be rote, they shouldn't be memorized, they should be genuine. You know, my father prayed the same prayer before eating, the blessing at the meal, the same prayer, the same words, exactly the same every single time. So, I mean, you know, it doesn't seem so spontaneous to me. And as a child, these people would get up to pray or whatever, and they would say God's given them, you know, some insight. It sounded an awful lot like the lady that said it last week too. You know, it becomes rote. It's a pattern, and so prayer often becomes a pattern. Catholic.
Is the Book of Common Prayer, is that an Episcopal book?
Yes.
The Book of Common Prayer?
Yes.
Okay.
It's an Episcopal liturgy. It's of prayers of the Episcopal Church, but now more than ever, like Presbyterians use it, so they claim it as their prayers too, but they're the Book of Common Prayers. And I actually believe some of those prayers found origins in the liturgy of the original Roman Catholic Church before the Episcopal Church split off. So, but when I do a funeral, you know, it's like I'm not always going to invent the whole liturgy, so I go to the Book of Common Prayer. And I do repeat a lot of the same things, especially things that mean a lot to me. You know, things that really mean something to me. I will repeat them in every funeral service that I'm in, because it matters to me. And I wish sometimes that people knew those prayers a little bit more, but I don't know. The American population doesn't know the Book of Common Prayer hardly at all. Probably the most popular one that they might have known would be in the service of marriage. They would know the marriage vows that are in the Book of Common Prayer. But even those, we change them now. We make them much more contemporary. We don't use those vows anymore.
No, love and obey.
Yeah, that's it. That's the phrase.
You obey?
I used to tell couples in marital counseling, they'd say, oh, I want traditional vows. And I would go, no, you don't. No, you don't. You do not. And they look at me and I go, okay, here's the traditional vows. I turn to her and I go, will you obey him and do whatever he tells you to do? And then, of course, her mouth drops open. And then I turn to him and I go, will you be really kind and nice while you're ordering her around? Because that's the heart of what the traditional vows say. That's what they said. Happy marriage was a woman who obeyed her husband. And then,
Amen.
And then, of course, you know, by then they're looking at me and they go, okay, no, we don't want traditional vows. I said, see, I told you so. I told you.
Yeah. Oh, be careful what you wish for.
That's right. All right, my friends, I think we've come to the end of the hour. Got started a little bit late, but I'm sorry to have shared it tonight with you. I hope you don't think I picked on this prayer too much and how sick she was when she wrote it. I did. Picked her up a bit.
A poor sick.
I know, it's not nice because it's a sick person and I'm picking on him. All right. Thank you.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay. Good night, Cheryl. We're glad to have you with us tonight. So glad you could join us.
Good night.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't push Cheryl enough.
Bye.
Take care. Bye now.
Bye. And I'm glad that you were able to